gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, the parable and teaching in today's gospel is one of the most confusing that Jesus gives, but I'm not going to talk about it today. Maybe when it comes back around in 3 years. If we had time to do everything, we certainly would. But today I want to focus on the second reading and talk about the mission of the church, the what, the how, and the why. The mission of the church is to continue the work of Jesus, to bring everyone to the knowledge of the truth and to salvation. That's the what. The how can be summarized in different ways, but I'll just use a story to kind of illustrate some of the ways that we bring this about. This story comes from the life of St. Francis. One day he was away from his home, what they called the friary, and these 3 men showed up at the door, and they knocked, and Brother Angelo opened the door, and they asked for food. But Brother Angelo recognized that these were robbers. And so he began to rebuke them. He knew of their criminal acts, and he said, "You dare to steal the fruit of other people's labor, and now you come to the servants of God to ask for food." He said, "You respect no man, and you scorn God, your creator." And he told them, "You get out of here and never come back." And they left, and they were angry and indignant. And meanwhile, St. Francis shows up again. He has in his hand a sack full of bread and a little jug of wine that someone had given him for the brothers. And he goes in, and Brother Angelo tells him, "This is what happened just now." And St. Francis tells him that he was acting cruelly, and that sinners are brought back to God better by holy meekness than by cruel scolding. And he said, and furthermore, Jesus gave us this example. He said, Jesus said that physicians are not for those who are well, but for the sick. And that Jesus did not come to call the just, but sinners to righteousness. And he said, and that's why he ate with them. So St. Francis told Brother Angelo, "Take this sack of bread and this jug of wine, and you go find those guys. Go search in the valleys and the mountains until you find them. Give them this, and then kneel down and humbly accuse yourself of that act of cruelty." So Brother Angelo set off. He found those 3 men, the robbers, and he gave them the bread and the wine, and he knelt down and told them how sorry he was for acting cruelly. And then he got up and left. I forgot one part of that. St. Francis told him, after he apologized, to invite them to stop their evil deeds, and that if they did that, St. Francis would provide for everything that they needed. So that's what he did. The men afterwards thought to themselves, "Well, we are a miserable group of people. We don't even feel bad about all the terrible things that we have done, very wicked things. And here this holy friar comes and apologizes for doing something that was honestly what we deserved." And so they said, "I wonder if we can find forgiveness." And they decided, let's go talk to St. Francis. And so they went to St. Francis, the robbers, and he received them with great kindness. And he told them many true stories about people changing their lives and about them being reconciled with God. And he told them there is no sin that is so great that you cannot be forgiven of it, and that God's mercy is limitless because Jesus Christ died to save everyone. And so they said to him, "What should we do?" And he told them, and they renounced all their wicked past, and they became friars, and as the story goes, they lived happily ever after. And I think this story illustrates what we can do to carry out the mission of the church. If people show up at our doorstep, we should receive them with kindness. We shouldn't scold them. We shouldn't rebuke them. And I mean this figuratively. If they come to us, we should show them meekness and kindness as Jesus would. And we should go to them, taking the bread of sincerity and the wine of joy and giving it to them and saying, "Please change your ways. We invite you to come back and to be reconciled with God, and he will provide for all of your needs. And if we can't even do those things, then at the very least we should pray for everyone. That's what St. Paul tells us in the second reading today. We should offer prayers, petitions, and thanksgiving for everyone, not just people we like or people we think need our prayers, but everyone. And that's the how. And the final thing today I just want to focus on is the why. Why should we do all these things? And that's what the second reading really gives us a very, very important teaching today. It says that God wills everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And when St. Paul says everyone, he means everyone. It's not just you or I. It's not just the people we know. It is everyone. It's not one nation among many. It's every person that has ever lived. God wills their salvation. Why? Because he loves us so very much, and Jesus gave his life as a ransom for all. Now, because it says God wills everyone to be saved, does that mean that everyone will be saved? And the short answer is no. And the longer answer includes some technical terms, if you'd bear with me, because it is the antecedent will of God that everyone be saved. That's his desire. That's his plan. He wants everyone to be saved. But the result, the consequent will of God, the technical term, is that not everyone is. Some are and some aren't. And the reason why is that we have free choice. We have the ability to refuse God's invitation. He will not save us without us. And so we have to be part of that. And so there's a difference between the plan of God and the results. Maybe another way of thinking about it would be like a merchant who is taking all of his goods from one place to another on a ship. And he wants everything to stay intact and make it to the next place. But if they're out on the ocean and all of a sudden a storm comes up and they have to start throwing off boxes of goods in order to save themselves, that's not what he wants, but that's what happens. And that example falls short, but it helps us to understand God desires everyone's salvation. Just because of human free will, it doesn't always happen. But that's where we come in. We can help accomplish God's will by bringing other people to the knowledge of the truth and to salvation. That's the mission of the church. That's the reason why in every age the church has decided to be a missionary, to go out and to reach all people. And Jesus says in the gospel that the children of this world work really diligently for much less important things than the children of light. And so we should put a lot of effort into this command of Christ and to carry it out. And finally, if we need even more motivation, sometimes it helps to be embarrassed a little bit, right? When I was in high school in the weight room where we trained, somebody had cut out a newspaper clipping and they photocopied it and put it on all the walls of this weight room, and it said something like, "Heights outmuscles Bishop Carroll." And the point was, you got to try a little harder, everybody. And it was motivating. I was motivated, do a couple more reps, put a little more weight on there. And I wasn't even on the football team, but I knew that this is a motivating thing for us. And so if we were to use a little bit of motivation by embarrassment, maybe we would say something like this: for every one person who enters the Catholic Church, 6 leave it. That is a statistic that people quote very often. And maybe we could keep that in mind and say, we're not doing really good right now, and we could do a lot better. And we need to be motivated because God loves everyone. He wants their salvation, and we have a great role to play in that. And so we should humbly pray to God and ask him what to do, and with courage do that, because that is our role, and we have to carry out the command of Christ in the world today. Because once again, if we don't do it, who will? Who will? He needs us to accomplish his goal and to accomplish his will in the world. And that's our job today.